Well, here we are in Portland, Oregon, on top of Mount Tabor, one of the more picturesque spots in this city, a place where I like to come for some peace and quiet, and there's not a lot of people around either. It also is going to serve as a metaphor for what I'm about to talk to you about today. You see, Mount Tabor is a dormant volcano. There is a perpetual endemic of hate that is gripping our global world today, and it's permeating all aspects of our lives. And it's starting right here in Portland, because this is the proving ground for Trump and what he wants to do in terms of controlling what is being said. Like the COVID-19 virus, it's taking hold in a way that is extremely frightening because it seems to be all-encompassing, with words turning into hateful and senseless tit-for-tat actions led by Trump and his administration. Civility seems to be dead on all sides at times, and hatred is the byword through which everybody seems to be speaking. We're the only animal who consciously enables his own kind to glorify such perfidy. Ironically, war creates a bond between brothers in arms, two, that independently transcends the shared horror brought on by the enabled killing through man-made wars, bringing them together by the forced experiences of forced horrors they are put through by their respective countries. Today it's come full circle, led by an ignorant president who has no idea of the reality of war, but spews out his delusional, hateful garbage ad infinitum. At the end of August, I'll be turning 85. This time is supposed to be my golden years, but somehow it doesn't seem very golden right now. And I want to experience life and have some fun. I'm an experientialist, and I think that experiencing things is what forms you as a person and what gives you the energy and the fortitude to become who you are. When I was 21, I went to New York. When I got to New York, there were a lot of surprises laid in wait for me. And life became very complicated. New York was a new world. But I also found that there were people trying to tell you what to do. One was the actor's studio, which I didn't cotton to because I wanted to be a classical actor. And I also found that they made a lot of assumptions of what I should or should not do. So I went to see as many plays as I could, and one night I saw a production of Tamerlane the Great with an actor called Anthony Quayle, who had been with Olivier and Gielgud at the Old Vic. In those days, celebrities' addresses were published freely in the Variety, the theatrical trade magazine. And so I went and wrote a letter to Anthony Quayle and walked around his hotel a couple of times and then went in and left a letter for him. Well, to my surprise, he phoned me. I got a phone call from him the next day. So he put me in touch with the casting secretary for Stratford-on-Avon and gave me her phone number. I subsequently called her, and she was very nice and very charming on the phone, and said that she could probably get me into the Young Vic, and we should set up a time when we could meet. But the first thing she said is I would of course have to get a visa from the British consulate. Well, not wasting any time, I ran to the British consulate and was informed by them that I had to have a letter from my draft board before I could leave the country. To make a long story short, I wrote my draft board telling me that under no circumstances could I leave the country, and I was completely blown away and totally depressed. I called the woman in tears and told her that I wasn't able to take advantage of her offer. In a rage and really pissed off, I enlisted in the Army for 3 years. And subsequently I found myself in the Army Security Agency. I finished basic training, was in Fort Devens, where they offered me code school or to go to the paradise of the Middle East in Asmara, Eritrea, on the job training as a military policeman. At one point I got drunk and disorderly and was brought into the major's office and was told that I wasn't a man and that they were going to make a man out of me all over again. And at that point I decided, fuck you. And I fought the Army and I got out in 2 years. I discovered at that point that I could hate them or I could confront them with my own feelings, which I did, and which was what got me out of the Army. And I learned at that moment that you can't get all worked up about hating things. You have something better to do, and that is to get over it. And I got out of the Army, ironically realizing that for all they could do to me, I ended up making a man out of myself by standing up for myself. Well, in the Army, I learned to believe in myself and to confront people, and not like my father and brother did, which is to respect all authority regardless of whether it made sense or not. Which brings me back to the whole subject of hatred. Hatred has to be bred in you. And the horrible thing about what's happening today is that's what everyone is trying to do. To use their hatred to solve a problem, instead of going around the problem and finding a way, an effective way, to confront it. Now we are losing lives in another senseless war through a viral pandemic whose destruction is proudly ignored by many through their own ignorance in pursuit of personal gain. Such is the selfishness of men who are foolishly taught the hatred burned into their souls from childhood and circumstances. When and where will it end? It must come from you, from the voting booth, and a concerted effort to control the cruel nature of this virus that, like some, is without empathy. And since I'm an actor, proudly an actor, I want to conclude this whole Sermon on the Mount with something from Shakespeare. So there's a speech in Henry V that is usually cut in the many film versions made of the play, and spoken by the Duke of Exeter on the deaths of the Duke of York and the Earl of Suffolk at the end of the Battle of Agincourt. Beautifully written by William Shakespeare. It exemplifies this irony. It glorifies war, but at the same time, it's a metaphor for not having war. In which array, brave soldier, doth he lie, lauding the plain. And by his side, yoke fellow to his honour owing wounds, the noble Earl of Suffolk also lies. Suffolk first died, and York, all haggled over, comes to him where in gore he lay ensteeped, and takes him by the beard, and kisses the gashes which bloodily did spawn upon his face, and cries aloud, "Tarry, cousin Suffolk, tarry, sweet soul, for mine. Then fly abreast as in this glorious and well-foughten field we kept together in our chivalry." Upon these words I came and cheered him up. He smiled me in the face, wrought me his hand, and with a feeble grip says, "Dear my lord, commend my service to my sovereign." So did he turn, and over Suffolk's neck he threw his wounded arm and kissed his lips. And so, espoused in death with blood, he sealed a testament of noble rending love. The pretty and sweet manner of it forced those waters from me, which I would have stopped. I had not so much a man in me. For all my mother came into mine eyes, it gave me up to tears.